Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to build a URL shortener with Django. Most of us are familiar with Bitly that helps to shorten long URL. So in this video I'm going to show you how to do something similar to Bitly. You understand? So now I've gotten some URLs I want to shorten. For example, this is one of my GitHub repository. So I want to shorten the URL to my GitHub repository. So I'll simply copy this and paste on my URL shortener application. So paste this here. After I've pasted, and just simply, so this is the URL I want to shorten. So after I've pasted it into the field, I'll simply click on the shorten URL button. So let's see. So click on the button. As you can see, a shortened URL has been generated for me. So I'll simply copy this and paste in my browser to show you that it's working. So paste and go. It's simply loading right now. So, okay, it's loading soon. Okay, you can see now it's working. So I'm going to copy now my YouTube URL. So copy this. I'll simply copy this and paste down in my URL shortener application. Okay, paste and okay, shorten URL. You can see I've gotten my shortened URL. Copy this and paste in the browser. You can see it's loading. As you can see now, my YouTube page is opened from the shortened URL. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build a simple URL shortener like this with Django. Here we have this localhost 8000. It's the same as what we have here in the search bar, 127.0.0.1.8000. Once we deploy our project to the internet, we'll simply get a short domain name, a very short domain name, and replace this localhost 8000 with a short domain name we got. Understand? But for now, we are going to be using localhost column 8000 because we are still on the development server. Once we go down to the production server, we'll get a short domain name and replace localhost 8000 with a short domain name. But for now, we'll leave it the way it is. So without further ado, let's get straight to the computer and build this URL shortener with Django. Okay, so now I have VS Code opened on my computer, so I'm going to simply create a new terminal and run some Django commands to start projects. Understand? So right now I'm going to simply run Django admin start projects. So let's do that right now. Django admin start projects. Before I do that, I need to get into my desktop, cd desktop. So I'm going to run the command Django admin start projects URL shortener. Mind you, before you're able to use the Django command, you must make sure you have Django installed on your computer by simply running pip install Django. So after you've done, and before Django will also work, you must also make sure you have Python first. You must have installed Python by going to python.org and installing Python before you come down to your command prompt or to your VS Code terminal to install Django. You understand? You must make sure you have Python installed first. After you have installed Python, install Django before Django will work on your computer. As you can see right now, we've created a project, Django admin start project URL shortener. So simply head straight to our URL shortener directory. We're going to move into this directory. So I'm going to say cd URL shortener. Okay, now we are inside the URL shortener. So after we've done that, now we're going to simply run a command python manage.py run server. Python manage index.py, run server. Okay, for the server to run, it's going to take some few seconds for the server to run, but please be patient, please. Thank you. Now our server is running. Simply copy this code, http copy. You can see from our project we have localhost 8000 being returned from here. That's this localhost 8000 we have here is the same as this 127.0.0.1 column 8000. It's the same thing, you understand? So now get onto the browser and paste the, so you can paste the code now. So paste and go. Okay, now this is a sign that we've successfully been able to create a Django project. Yes. So now let's do some configuration in our Django. Let's make some progress now. So I'm going to simply close the terminal. So I'm going to open the folder I created in my desktop. So I'm going to simply say open folder. The folder is right in my desktop. So let's get the, I'm going to get the folder now. I call it URL Shortener. Here's the folder. So select folder. Okay, so now the Django, our folder is open. The Django project is opened on VS Code. Now we need to create a Django app for our Django project. We need to create an app for the Django project. You understand? So simply get onto the command to the terminal. So we are going to simply run a command. Pip, no, Python, not pip. Python manage.py start app. I'm gonna call this URL app. Enter. So now just watch the app will appear here. You can see now we have the app called URL app. What we need to do first is to register this app in the installed apps. So open your Django project, which is URL Shortener. Open it. So just find settings.py. Okay, so in the settings.py, just scroll down till you get to where we have installed apps. Here it says, so just simply add the newly created app to the list of installed apps we have here. So the one we have is called URL app. So simple as that now. So we need to do now, we need to want to create a views for our for the project. So get down to your application, to the app you just created. So open views.py. So now what I'm going to simply do is I want to create a view for my project. I'm going to say, I'm going to create a function. The name of this function is called index. So you're going to take in an argument called requests. So I'm going to simply say return. I'm going to return a template. Return render. It's going to take its first argument as request. The second as the name of our template, index.html, and a dictionary. So now let's go create our template called index.html. So save your work. So after I've done that, instead of the URL app, instead of our Django app called URL app, create a folder called templates. Template, enter. So in this template folder, we're going to simply create a file called index.html. Index.html. Okay, so we've done that right now. Yes, so I'm going to simply go and copy the HTML code and paste here. So I'm going to pause this video while I go copy the code. Okay, so I've copied the code, so I'm going to simply paste the code right here. Okay, here is my HTML. Here's the HTML code for the project. So I'm going to do next, I'm going to simply configure my views to a URL. I'm going to do a URL mapping to the views we have, to this view we have here. So I'm going to simply create a new file called urls.py. urls.py. So in this file, I'm gonna okay from now I'm gonna import the parts, Django parts. I'm gonna say from Django dot URLs import parts. So I'm gonna say URL patterns. This is a you're gonna use this particular variable called URL patterns. Understand? So this is gonna be a list of some Django parts. I'm gonna simply say parts. Gonna be empty. It's gonna refer to the views.index, the function I just created. You understand? So I'm gonna give it a dynamic name called index. Okay, that's it. So I'm gonna simply import this views module into the URL.py. I'm gonna say from dot import views. If you watch this refers to the URL app, you understand? So rather than writing URL app, we could simply use dots to make things to make our code shorter, understand? So I'll simply save my work. After I've done this now, I'll make sure this URL.py file is registered in my Django project. So I'm going to simply get down to the URL.py file in my Django project. So close the URL app, get down to your Django project called URL Shortener, open the URL.py file there. So once you like register the app's URL.py file to the project's URL.py file, understand? So I'm going to simply do this parts. Okay, I'm going to simply say include URL app dot URLs. So I'm going to import this include keyword include. So save your work. After you save now, get down to the browser and refresh the page. Oh, we have this error. This is because our server is down. So let's go run server right now. I'm gonna say Python manage spy run server, enter. Okay, the server is running currently, so refresh the page again. It's loading. Okay, you can see now we have the page right here. You can see it's not looking beautiful. That's because we don't have our style or CSS attached to it yet. So get down to your VS Code right now. We're gonna simply create a new folder in our application in the Django app called URL app. So create a static folder inside of this app. I'm gonna say static. Okay, after I've done that now, I'm gonna simply create a CSS file instead of this static folder. I'm going to simply say CSS. No, I'm going to simply say style.css. Style.css. So permit me to copy the style.css code and paste here. So I'm going to pause the video while I go copy the code so avoid wasting of time. So the code is copied now, so I'm simply going to paste it here. Okay, that done. So save your work. So get down to my index.html and make sure. So I'm going to simply link that CSS over here. Yes, put this in a double quote and make sure we have the percent sign on the left and right side, the percent symbol. After we've done that, put the static. You can see this style.css inside the static folder, and this is the static folder over here. And make sure you come over here and include. Just put this load static. Make sure it's included. Load static. So save your work and get down to the page again and refresh. Okay, you can see now our project is properly configured right now. So now we need to get down to our models.py and create some database contents for this project. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to open my models.py file. Simply say class. I'm going to say URL, or I'm going to say link info, the information of our link. So I'm going to simply inherit from models.model. So our model is going to have two attributes. Understand? It's going to have two attributes, the link itself, and I'm also going to assign a particular ID to each link I want to shorten. Understand? So I'm going to call this is going to be the link. The link is going to be equal to models.character feed. You're going to have a max length of, let's say, 10,000. Some links are excessively long, so I think 10,000 is a good match. So for the link ID, I'm going to simply say, so I'm going to assign a 5 digits code to each link, something like this. If you watch closely, you can see now this code. Here's the code right here. So I'm going to assign 5 digits code to each link I get. So let me do that right now. I'm going to say link ID should be equal to models. So models dot character field. I'm going to say max length should be equal to, let's say, 5. Understand? So now after I've done this, I'm going to simply run some migrations. Understand? So let's do that right now. Before I run this, before I run the migration, let's do this. I'm going to say def. I'm going to produce a human readable string for each database contents. So I'm going to simply say return self dot link ID to save. So let's run some migrations. I'm going to simply say Python manage.py make migrations. So now let's migrate. I'm going to say Python manage.py migrate. So it's migrating to the database. Okay, so we've got to wait. So now we're going to create a super user. We're going to create a super user that are going to gain access to our database content. I'm going to simply say Python manage.py create super user. So I'm going to simply call it super user. I'm going to say Clint. I'm going to put in a password. So now, yes. Okay, super user created successfully. So run the server again. Manage.py run server. Enter. So our server is running. So we need to register this particular model in our admin file. So get down to make sure you find the admin file. Just you can see we have the admin files inside our application URL app. So we need to import the model. We're gonna say from dot models import link info. So we need to register this link info. We're gonna say admin dot site dot register. So register the link info. So that's it. So save your work. So now get onto the browser. So I'm going to close some of these pages. So we're going to enter to the admin. I'm going to say 127/admin. So put in your login credentials. I'm going to say put in my own. So login. Okay, now we can see now we are logged into our admin site. Okay, I think that's good now, but for now we don't have anything in the admin. The database is currently empty. Yes, there's no problem with that. So now what we want to do is that we want to make sure that whenever a user imputes a URL, a long URL here, we want to make sure that URL is saved to the database. Understand? Whenever a user imputes a URL, we want to make sure the URL is saved to the database from this point. And we want to also make sure we add a 5 digits code to any particular URL that comes. So we want to like assign a code to each link we get. You understand? We want to assign a code. So let's go write the code now in our views.py. Earlier, I want to make sure each URL, each link we get as we're going to make sure we attach a 5 digits code to each link we get. Understand? So I'm going to simply do that right now. I'm going to create a new function. I'll call this anything. I'm going to say call this create. I'm going to simply say add add some links to my database. The US people want to shorten. I want to make sure those links are added to the database. I'm going to simply say add. I'm going to say request. So after I've done that, I'm going to simply say I'm going to call this links should be equal to request. Okay, before I do that, understand we are working with the form right here. If you watch closely, this is a form. We're working with the form. So now it's all. I'm going to simply say if there is a post request, whereby post request occurs whenever we are adding something to the database, whenever we are altering the database, that's when a post request occurs. So we are trying to add a link, we're trying to add links to our database. That means that's going to something that is going to certainly be a post request. Understand? So I'm going to go down to my index.html. Here is my form. Okay, as you can see here, I have my form over here. Is my form. This includes the input field and the submit button. You understand? So now you can see here we have a method of post right here. So get down to the views.py. I'm going to simply say if request dot method is equal to posts. I want to simply get, if it's a post request, I want to first of all get the value of my input field. You understand? How do we get values of input field in Django? I'm going to simply say, I'm going to call this link should be equal to, I'm going to say link should be equal to request dot posts. So I'm going to put the value of the name attribute for this. Let's see what we have as a value. So this is the input field. So for me to get the value of this field with Django, I simply need to get I simply need to just put in this, as I said, request dot post square bracket the value of the name attributes we have on the form. And the name attribute, the value of the name attribute we have here is called link. So I'm simply going to put link. Okay, link. So now what I want to do is that I want to like for each link we get, I want to make sure they have a 5 digits code. You understand? So I'm going to simply import this module. I'm going to say import UUID. Yes. So I'm going to say link ID should be equal to, I'm gonna convert this to straight string. I'm gonna say string UUID dot UUID 4. So I only need 5 digits of this UUID. UUID strings are super long, so I want to minimize this to 5 digits instead. So I've done that right now. So yes, I've done that. So what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna say I'm gonna call this new link. This is a new link. This is our shortened link now. I'm gonna say, so I want to save this to the database. Understand? I want to save these items to the database. I'm gonna simply say new link should be equal to. So I'm gonna import the models, the model class we have in our models of spy. So I'm gonna simply import this link info. Understand? So how do we do that right now? So get down to your views of spy. So we're going to simply import that model. We're going to say from dot models import link info. I'm going to say new link should be equal to link info. Our link info has 2 attributes, link and link ID, right? So continue. We're going to simply say the first attribute is link. So that attribute is going to be equal to the link we have here. This link we have here. So your second attribute is called link ID, which is the code. It's gonna be equal to the link ID we have here. Mind you could name any of these variables, any name of your choice. Understand? So link ID should be equal to link ID. So I'm gonna simply save this. I'm gonna say new link dot save. That's it now. So I want to simply return something. I'm gonna return an HTTP. I'm gonna return a HTTP response. I'm gonna say return HTTP. So if I do that, I need to import this HTTP response. I'm gonna say from Django dot HTTP imports HTTP response. So I'm gonna say return HTTP response. So I want to like show this on my browser. So link ID. So that's it. So save your work now. I'm going to create a URL for this particular function. Get down to the URL, get down to the URLs.py file for your application. So put a comma behind this, copy and paste. So I'm going to simply put here create. You're going to be create. So I'm going to simply put here views dot add. Understand? Let's move our function. Yes, views dot add. So after I've done that, now I'm gonna say put in create here also. Great. So save your work. So now get down to the index.html. So our form, so the data we have in our views.py will be returned to this URL action. Return to this dynamic URL we're about to create. Okay. So the data we have now, this. So now I want to return this UID to this to the URL I have on my form. You understand this? To this particular URL I have on my form slash create. You understand? So what I'm gonna do now is simple. So I'm gonna simply so now what we're gonna do now, we're gonna head straight to the browser. We're gonna impute a particular any URL, put in anything in the browser. So I'm gonna simply copy this. You can put in anything for now. I'm gonna copy this code, this URL rather, and paste in the browser. You can see from the what we have in our code from our views.py, it says that if there is a post request, where's the views.py? It says if request.method is equal to post, create this link. You can see assign an ID to it. So our database we created should own the links and then save. After that, return an HTTP response to slash create. You understand? So now let's see if it works. So now click on so once we click on this shorten URL button, a post request just took place. So click. Oh, it's not working. As you can see now, we are having some issues with this. You can see we need to go to slash create and then print out the 5 digits code I created. But now nothing is occurring. So what could be the problem? So now I think we need to add this to our code. Oh, there's a problem here. This form. Okay, now I just removed the form. You can see the form was closed. So after that, put in the CXRF token because this is a post request. Put in the CXRF token. So save your work. And let's try again. So refresh the page, paste, and you can see now perfect. Now we are in slash create. This the data is being returned to. You can see now we have this 5 digits code now in slash create. Understand where the data is being pushed to. But now I don't want what I want actually is that I want the code. I don't want the page to reload, and I want that 5 digits code to be placed in this div we have here, in this container we have here, and not in the next page. I don't want a page reload one, and I also want this code we have here to be placed down here. You understand? So let's see As I said earlier, let's see if this actually saves the database. So get down to your database and refresh the page, see if it actually saves. Let's see. Okay, you can see it's actually saved. You can see open, just click on it. You can see for this URL we have this 5 digit code, you see. So click on the save icon. For the other one we have here, for this URL here, we have this 5 digit code, you see. That's nice, that's working fine. So what we need to do now is, I don't want the page to reload after I click on the button, on the shorten URL button. I don't want a page reload, so I'm going to apply JavaScript and AJAX to this project to make this not reload. You understand? So it's not difficult, so you're going to follow along. Okay, so now what we need to do now, get down to your index.html. We're going to put in some scripts. We're going to write some JavaScript in the index.html. So now simply come down to the body, after to the last, to just before the body tag, put your script tag over there. Okay, after you've done that, so close the script tag. So close it. So after I've done that now, so I want to like pick up my form. So you can see my form has an ID of my form. This form we have here as an ID of my form. So I'm going to pick it up through that ID. I'm going to say let form equal to document dot get elements by ID my form. So I'm going to also do what, I'm going to simply say form dot add event listener. I'm going to say submit. So I'm going to attach a function to this. So when we submit the form, this function is going to take place. The function is going to be called, the function will be called, okay, shorten URL. I'm going to call it shorten URL. So now the function will be declared over here. Let's say function shorten URL. So now I'm going to give this an argument e. Event listeners always, if functions from event listener, they always have this argument e. So I'm going to simply say e dot prevent defaults. Understand? So this prevent defaults command we have here is what stops the page from reloading. Understand? So I'm going to simply copy some AJAX code and inputs over here. I'm going to simply do this. I'm going to say dot AJAX rather. So I'm going to simply do this right now. Data into this AJAX braces. I'm going to simply say type. We are working into a post request. I'm going to simply put post there. So after that, now we're going to simply we are going to put in the URL we are submitting the data to, which is the create URL. So I'm going to simply copy from this form. So copy this out. Control X. Set copy. Rather, you cut out. So move this method post as it's already in AJAX already. We don't need it there again. So URL paste that here. Yes. So after you've done this, now we need to also work with our data. So we're gonna simply say, put in the dollar sign. This is son of jQuery. It's not difficult. We're gonna simply say hashtag my form. What this refers to is that we are trying to get all the fields of the form we have. But for this form, we will have a single field where we input the link my form, you understand? So you can see that my form is from the form ID we have here. So I'm trying to get all the data we have on the form, but for this project we only have a single field. We're only getting one item, you understand? I'm gonna put in .serialize. Yes. So now I'm gonna put in a data type. I'm gonna say data type. Data type should be JSON. JSON. So now what we're going to do next is that we're going to simply run a success function that's going to hold this function is going to hold it's going to have access to this HTTP response link ID. Understand? So now let's do that right now. Okay, open the index.html. So we're going to create a success. Issues that whenever we have the database, whenever we have the items in the database, we are going to have a success function. I'm going to call this function, okay, I'm going to say function sup. You could just simply say, you could just say done. So this done is going to have an argument, and this argument comes from the views.py. This HTTP response we have here, the link ID. Understand? Once you have this link ID, so as we said, so we've just gotten it now. So this function is going to have an argument. So you could call this argument any name you like, but I'm going to put my own data, and the data refers to HTTP response we have in our views.py. So now I'm going to simply like put that argument. I'm going to simply put that HTTP the response into this section of the project. This section we have here. I'm going to put the code into this section, but not just that, as I said earlier. So I'm going to copy that section. I'm going to pick up that section. This is a section here, and that's an ID of shortened link. So I'm going to simply say let shortened link be equal to documents dot get elements by ID shortened link. So now that's it. Now so I just picked up my shortened link. So I'm going to simply say now come down here and say shortened link dot inner text. That means the content of the shortened link should be equal to, I'm going to simply say data. So save now. Okay, so refresh, printed down here in this div. So if so click on the, so refresh the page. After that, now we're going to click on this URL, this button we have here. So click on it. Okay, as you could see earlier, nothing was occurring. Maybe I need to remove this. Maybe I need to unname the function. Okay, just unname the function. So now you can see that our HTTP response should be printed down here. So click on the shorten URL. So now I think now we should get the 5 digit code printed down here. You understand? So click on the shorten URL. You can see now we have it right here. As you keep clicking, it keeps generating different codes. Understand? So now, as I said earlier, that 5 digit code we are having there is from the views.py. Well, I'll show you that now. From the views.py, you know, after we save the items to the database, we have to return a HTTP response, the link ID, which is this we have here. So now, after we've done this, now we need to move to the next phase of the project. Now we need to like create a dynamic URL. So let's do that right now. I'm gonna say dev, okay, shortened URL. We're gonna be called this shortened URL. So before I proceed, I need to get down to my, okay, over here you can see this shortened link.inner text is not having the data. But I want to also add the local host 8000. As I said, I want to also add this slash the data we have here. You understand? As I said, localhost 8000 refers to what we have here. It refers to this 127.0.0.1 column 8000. So get down to your HTML index.html and put this local host 8000 slash instance. If you copy this now, so I'm going to say plus data, so save. So now let's see if it's going to print that. So refresh the page. So now put in the URL again, paste and shorten URL. You can see now we have localhost 8000 slash 5 digits code. You understand? So now if I copy this localhost now and paste the browser, so let's see. Let's see. Okay, it's loading. So I want to prove something to you. You can see localhost 8000 gives us the same output, just the way we have the 127. That's to tell you that the localhost 8000 is the same thing with what we have here. You understand? So now let's continue now. So I'm going to create a dynamic URL. So get down to the urls.py. So save, copy this. I'm going to say paths. So I'm going to say xtr. No. So I'm going to simply say xtr. I'm going to use this angle symbol xtr colon pk. So I want to get each URL ID, those 5 digit code. I want to get each of them linked to a particular URL. I want to get each URL ID. That's what I want to do right now. So I'm going to simply put this function views dot shorten. I'm going to call this function shorten. So I'm going to give somebody with I'm going to give this anything. Let me just call this shorten. So save your work and get onto the views.py. I'm going to call this shorten. I'm going to say request. Gain access to each of the URL ID, each of the link ID. I want to gain access to them. So I'm going to say link ID should be equal to link info dot object dot get link ID equal to pk. Understand? So the link info model has an attribute called link ID. So I'm trying to get each attribute. I'm trying to get each of the link. I'm trying to get the link ID for this link info. From here now, you can see from here, you can see we have this our link info model, and we have this link IDs. So I want to gain access to each and every one of these IDs. Understand? So what was wrong now? So I'm saying I want to gain access to each of these IDs. If you save this, once again, you can see we have several of them. I want to gain access to each and every one of them, and each of these IDs has a link attached to them. You can see those links. So now let's continue. So as I said, link info is the model. Dot object dot get link ID. This link ID is what is the attributes of this link info model. This is just a variable name. The one outside there, this link ID outside is simply a variable name. So after I've done that now, I want to get the actual link of a particular link ID. I want to get the link. For example, what I want to do now in the next line of code is to get the links attached to this link ID. For example, so save this. So now I want to get the URL attached to this link ID. That's what I want to do now. So now I'm going to simply say return redirect return redirect link ID. So this link ID is what we have here. So I'm going to say, and this link ID is this link ID we have outside here. The variable we have, the variable called link ID, refers to the individual 5 digit code we have. For example, something like this. Let's say so. So all this 5 digit code we have here is being held by this variable called link ID. So I want to I want to redirect back to the URL attached to this link ID. I'm going to simply say return redirect link ID dot link. The link I'm having here is what we have in our models.py, which is this. Understand? Up you grab. So now get down to the views.py now. So we've done this now, so we need to import this redirect. So come over here and say redirect. So save your work now. From our urls.py file, you can see now we are going to attach this link ID, those the 5 digit code, to the URL of our project. We're going to say slash. We're going to put in, as I said, we're going to as I said now, I'm going to put in this. So I'll simply copy this now, copy and paste here. Oh no. So and paste here. You can see now from my urls.py, you can see now we have this xtr.pk, which refers to each link ID, and this is going to be attached to the main URL which we have here. So once I refresh this page now once I reload the page, we see something. Oh, this isn't working. So paste slash go. So watch. Oh, there's a type error somewhere. Okay, the error we have. Okay, this error we have in here is from. We need to put this pk in the function here. You need to put the pk there also. So save your work. So that's the problem. So let's wait for the server to reload. So the server has finished reloading. So refresh the page again. You can see now the project is working. You can see now we have been redirected to my GitHub repository. You understand? So I want you to really get this right. I want you to get this right now. So now let's get back to our local host. I want to summarize what we just did now. What I simply did here is just that I got the long link, the long URL. Yes, so whenever I click on the whenever I click on the button shorten URL, this link is saved to my database. So it's not just saved. I also create a particular ID that is being saved with each URL that goes to my database instead. So what I simply do is that so whenever I click on the shorten URL, I simply print that ID attached to this, which is localhost 8000. Understand? So that's localhost 8000 I get here. The localhost 8000 I get in this part of this in this container here. What I simply do is that I simply redirect back to the link I have in my database. That is how a URL shortener works. You understand? I also hope you really understood. So we've come to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed this. The source code of this project is in the video's description. Check that for the source code, and please subscribe to my channel, share this video with your friends, and smash the like button for me as I make videos regularly on Django and JavaScript. Thank you for watching. Till we meet in the next video.